Chapters 33 and beyond. Right and wrong. I couldn't very well stay with my dad at a construction site, so I spent the day in my mom's office. I did the homework Mr. Vaughn had sent me home with, then hid in the corner reading Indian Captive, which I'd checked out from the real school library. When I finished it, I just read it again. Like Mary Jemison, I swore I would bear my pain quietly and without complaint. If I had been quiet before, I was going to be silent from now on. Speaking up just got you into trouble. Mom didn't have much to say to me all day anyway. I could tell she was still thinking about what to say and how to punish me, because getting suspended from school wasn't going to be bad enough. Parents can't ever let the bad stuff that happens when you make the mistake be all there is to it. They always have to add on some punishment of their own too, to remind you that they're in charge. That afternoon I went to my room without being told to and crawled under the blankets on my bed. Normally, Alexis would have been using my bed for a ballet bar, but today she kept away. She snuck in once to get her tutu, then slipped out again without saying a word. That was fine with me. I tried reading Indian Captive again, but I couldn't focus on it. All I could think about was all the kids who had borrowed books from me. They were all going to get letters sent home from school, and a lot of them were going to get in trouble. And it was my fault. Everybody who'd started to like me was going to hate me now. Dad brought me my dinner on a tray and told me I was to come and see him and Mom both in the kitchen when I was done. No matter how slowly I ate, I knew I couldn't put it off forever. Halfway through, I couldn't eat anymore anyway. It was time to face my parents. Dad was doing the dishes when I came in. I sat at the table and he called Mom in and dried his hands. The air felt heavier in the kitchen, like someone had died. Angelina appeared in the doorway. "Is Amy Ann in trouble?" she asked. "Yes, genius," I thought, but didn't say it. I was done talking. "Go back to the living room," Mom said. "Alexis, come and get your sister and keep her in the living room, please." There were to be no witnesses to my execution. When Alexis and Angelina were gone, Mom and Dad shared another one of those looks. This one I could read. It said, "We'd better get this over with." I started to suck on my braids, but I knew that would just make Mom more frustrated, so I fought the temptation. "Amy Ann, we don't know where to begin," Dad said. "We're just so shocked you would do this. It's so unlike you." I didn't say anything. "We're very disappointed," Mom said. "We expect better out of you. We expect you to set an example for your sisters." I didn't think I had any more tears left in me, but I started crying again. "On the other hand," Dad said, "we're proud of you for taking a stand." Mom and Dad shared another one of those looks between them. "Frankly, we were getting worried that you'd never stand up for yourself, never speak up." I hiccuped a sob. What good does it do to speak up when no one listens to what I'm saying, I thought. But I didn't say it. "Keeping all that inside isn't healthy," Mom said. "And we agree there are times that you have to stand up for what you want." "Or for what's right," Dad said. "We don't necessarily agree with Principal Bananazeski and the school board on this book banning business." I sniffed and rubbed my nose with my hand. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Was I not going to get more punishment? "But there's a right way and a wrong way to voice your objections," Mom said, "and this banned book library in your locker was the wrong way." Right. So I was getting more punishment after all. "You broke the rules, kiddo," Dad said. Right or wrong, the school board made a decision that those books weren't appropriate for elementary school students, and you have to respect that decision, Mom said. "You can't just decide what an adult tells you is wrong and do whatever you want." But what if the adult was wrong? Mom and Dad just said they didn't agree with the school board. And what if the adults didn't play by their own rules? What was a kid supposed to do? Just give up and do whatever they said? I wanted to argue with them, but I didn't. I just sat and stared at the table. "We'll deal with whatever else comes of this," Dad said. "I think Miss Bananazeski's threats about lawsuits was a bit much, but I do think there are going to be some pretty angry parents. That little woman who spoke at the school board meeting isn't going to be very happy." I didn't really care how Miss Spencer felt. or her stupid son for that matter. There's something else we want to talk about, Amy Ann, Mom said. Something even more disturbing to us. In talking with Principal Bananazeski, we've also discovered that you haven't been attending any of the after-school activities that you've told us you've been doing. I reeled. This on top of the BBLL suspension, I was totally blindsided. Why have you been staying late after school if you're not in any of these clubs? Dad asked. Because I need some time by myself. Because I don't have a quiet place of my own where I can just curl up in the corner with a book and read, I wanted to tell them. But I didn't say anything. More than anything, I think it's the lying that hurts me most, Amy Ann, my mother said. I started to cry again. I couldn't look either of them in the face. I felt sick for lying to them. Your father and I have decided to ground you for a week, Mom said. We know that doesn't mean much, though, since all you do is sit in your room and read books. So, we're not allowing you to read anything that isn't for a school assignment, either. I felt dizzy. Not read for an entire week? What was I going to do? How was I going to survive? I was suspended. Everyone at school hated me. And now I had nowhere to hide. My books were all I had left. My sobs overtook me. The phone rang and Dad got up to answer it. Hello? Yes. Oh, no, I don't think that would be a good idea. No, thank you, but no. He hung up. That was the local news, Dad said. He sighed. The story's out. They were calling to see if they could interview Amy Ann about the locker library. Great, Mom said. That's just what we need. All right, Amy Ann, go on to your room. Tomorrow you'll have to come into the office with me again. Bring your school books, but no other books, understand? I nodded and hurried away. Alexis wasn't in our room when I got there. I ran inside and threw myself on the bed, burying my face in my pillow to cry. I had ruined everything. Everything. My friends were never going to talk to me again. My parents were never going to trust me again. Nobody was ever going to think of me as the good girl who did what she was told ever again. The dogs hopped up on my bed and stuck their wet noses in my neck, trying to make me feel better. Amy Ann? It was Angelina. She was standing in the door to my room. The dogs must have come with her. She and Alexis must have been loving this. Go away, I told her, my face still buried in my pillow. The dogs laid down with me and the room got quiet, and I guessed Angelina had gone. Then I felt something nudge my arm, something soft and furry that wasn't one of the dogs. I opened my eyes. Angelina was gone, but she had left me her favorite stuffed pony to make me feel better. The latest casualty. I was in my room that night planning my escape to the Cameron Village Library from the mixed-up file style when I heard something about Shelbourne Elementary on the television in the living room. It was late. The new glow-in-the-dark alarm clock I'd gotten for my birthday said it was 11:10 p.m. And Alexis was already asleep across the room. I slipped out of bed and tiptoed down the hall to peek in at the TV. They were showing pictures of my school while a woman explained all about the BBLL. They even showed a picture from me from last year's yearbook. I squeaked, but covered my mouth enough that Mom and Dad didn't hear me. On the couch, I saw my mom put her hand to her forehead like she had a headache. Then Mrs. Spencer came on. Fourth graders aren't old enough to make decisions like this for themselves, she said. That's why they have parents. That's why we have a school board. The school board agreed that these books were inappropriate for elementary school students, in many cases harmful. The books were removed from the library for their protection. The reporter talked all about how this began with the school board meeting where Mrs. Spencer got them to remove the books, and then a picture of Mrs. Jones came up on the screen. At the center of the controversy is Shelbourne Elementary librarian Dr. Opal Jones, who all along has maintained that the books should remain available to all students. Mrs. Jones, decked out in a blue dress with white polka dots, appeared in a recorded interview. Every parent has the right to decide what their child can and can't read. What they cannot do is make that decision for everyone else, she said. It was the same thing she had said at the school board meeting that night. Tonight, Mrs. Jones became the latest casualty in what observers are calling the Battle of the Books, the reporter said. The reporter cut to a man in a suit. Under his name, it said he was a member of the school board. Whether deliberately or through negligence, Dr. Jones let those books circulate against the express orders of the school board. As such, her contract has been terminated. Her contract has been terminated? That meant fired. Mrs. Jones had been fired. And it was all because of me. My glorious return. Dad drove me to school my first day back from suspension so I wouldn't have to ride the bus. I didn't want to have to sit there while Rebecca and Danny pretended not to know me. They probably still liked me, but now I was the girl who got everybody in trouble. They couldn't hang out with me anymore, or everybody would just hate them too. I didn't blame them, but I just couldn't bear it, not on my first day back. Dad knew I was scared to go back. He didn't even tell me not to suck on my braids. I don't know if he did it on purpose or not, but he dropped me off with a kiss right as the first bell rang, so everyone was already in class when I walked down the hall. I was going to get a tardy slip, but I wasn't too worried about it. Not like I would have been before. I wasn't the good girl anymore. I had just been suspended for 3 days. Being on time for class didn't really seem all that important anymore. I was glad nobody was there when I got to my locker. Every day I went straight to my locker and put in the combination on my lock to open it. But the lock was gone, of course. Mr. Crutchfield had cut it off. Suddenly, it was 3 days ago, and I was standing exactly where I was now and watching Principal Banana open my locker and pull out all the banned books, and I was crying in front of everyone. I started to cry again, but not as bad, just a tear or two. I wiped my eyes with the back of my hand. I was going to have to open my locker again, put my books in, and get to class. At least now it would be empty, and I could put all my books in there without having to lug them all around. But it wasn't empty. When I opened my locker, folded notes spilled out of it onto the floor, dozens of them. My locker mailbox had been stuffed full, and when more notes wouldn't fit, they piled up inside my locker. I opened one with pink loopy handwriting. AA, I'm sorry you got suspended. Hang in there. Another one said, Dear Amy Ann, my parents got a letter telling them I checked out a book from the BBLL, but they didn't care. It stinks that you got suspended. Principal Banana's a doofus. From Kevin. They were all like that. Fourth graders writing to tell me that they were sorry I got suspended, that Principal Bananazeski and the school board were wrong, that their parents had gotten the letter Mrs. Bananazeski said she'd write, but either their parents didn't care or they didn't care that their parents were upset. I sat on the floor and opened every one. I cried again as I read them, but this time I wasn't crying because I was sad. I was crying because everybody was being so nice. I stuffed all the letters into my locker with the books, dried my eyes, and opened the door to Mr. Vaughn's classroom. Mr. Vaughn was in the middle of reading out a new list of vocabulary words when every head in the room turned and saw me. Rebecca squealed, jumped up, and ran across the room to hug me. Danny came over too, but just stood nearby smiling at me. Everybody else broke out clapping and cheering. Everybody but Trey. I was stunned by my class's response. I was sure everyone was going to hate me. I tried to call, but your mom said you were grounded, Rebecca said. Did you see all the notes? Danny said. I told everyone the truth about why you got suspended. I didn't have a chance to answer them. Mr. Vaughn quieted everyone down and sent us to our seats. All right, he said. Welcome back, Amy Ann. As you can see, you were missed by everyone, including me. Now, if we can try to focus on our new vocabulary list, the next word is valiant. As soon as we got to a time when we could get up and move around, Rebecca and Danny and a few of the other students hurried over to me. I worried that Mr. Vaughn was going to make us be quiet and separate us, but he pretended to be focused on something at his desk and not notice. I saw your picture on the news, said Danny, flicking his hair out of his face. Did you hear? Mrs. Jones was fired, Rebecca said. I know, I said. It still hurts to think about it. Did you guys get in trouble? Nah, Danny said. I mean, we got the letter home like everybody else, but that's it. There's going to be a special school board meeting, someone else said. My mom said I can go. Me too, some of the others added. Well, what are we going to do now? Danny asked me. What do you mean? I asked. What's next? Rebecca said. How do we get Mrs. Jones and all the books back? Get Mrs. Jones and all the books back? How was that even possible? And how on earth did they think that I would know the answer? It was over. The BBLL was finished, and so was I. But I didn't say that. All I said was, I don't know. Well, just wait till Helen comes, Danny said. Then they'll be sorry. We don't have to wait till Helen comes, Rebecca said. We've got Amy Ann. Mr. Vaughn coughed, which told us it was time to get back to doing some actual classwork. Rebecca and Danny smiled at me as they left, which made me feel even worse. What was everyone going to think of me when they realized there was nothing I could do? That there was nothing any of us could do to fix everything? I looked up and saw Trey watching me from across the room. My fists clenched and my face got hot. In the 3 days since I'd been suspended, I'd felt sad, then sorry, then hopeless, then depressed. But now I was just mad. And I was starting to think that giving Trey a big old knuckle sandwich might be worth another 3 days of suspension. The mirror universe. I was marching across the cafeteria to give Trey a piece of my mind and maybe a piece of my fist when Jeffrey Gonzalez appeared in front of me like somebody transporting in one of those science fiction shows he watched. I almost knocked him over. Hey, Amy Ann, he said. Hey, Jeffrey, I said. Excuse me, I need to go and punch somebody in the face. Jeffrey looked nervously behind him, wondering who I was talking about. Oh, okay, he said nervously. I just wanted to say I was sorry, for getting you suspended. I stopped. What? I'm sorry I got you suspended, Jeffrey said. He looked a little worried I was going to punch him instead. How did you get me suspended? It was that book you gave me, Bridge to Terabithia. I read it, and it made me think about my Grammy, my grandmother who died. When I finished it, I got really upset. My heart sank. I felt awful. I hadn't meant for Bridge to Terabithia to make Jeffrey feel bad. I had thought that maybe reading about somebody else who had lost someone suddenly would make him understand he wasn't alone. Maybe show him that there was a way out of the sadness. No, not like that, he said, seeing the worry on my face. I mean, it made me cry. Jeffrey looked around embarrassed, and I couldn't stop crying. That's when Mom and Dad came in my room, and I kind of let it all out. I hadn't really cried since Grammy died. I guess I needed to. Anyway, Mom and Dad saw it was the book that did it, so they called the principal. But not because they were mad. They called to say how great it was that Mrs. Jones gave me the book. I saw it all in my head. Jeffrey's parents called to tell Principal Bananazeski how Miss Jones helped Jeffrey by giving him the right book. Oh, how wonderful, Mrs. Bananazeski says. What book? Bridge to Terabithia, they say. Alarm bells go off in Principal Banana's head. She's heard of the book. It was on the banned books list. She goes to Mrs. Jones. Mrs. Jones says she never gave anybody that book. It's right back there on the shelf, only it isn't. But then where did Jeffrey get it? That made me tell. They made me tell, Jeffrey said. I'm so sorry. I never meant to get you in trouble, and neither did my parents. They're real sorry, too. They said they would call your parents and let them know. I looked at Trey across the room, drawing in his sketchbook. A minute ago, I was ready to kill him for ratting me out, but it turned out he didn't have anything to do with it after all. It's okay, I told Jeffrey. I'm just glad you feel better. You got really mean there for a little while. I know, Jeffrey said. That was the mirror universe me. The mirror universe you? Yeah, he said. In Star Trek, there's this mirror universe, and everybody there is the opposite of what they are in this universe. So if you're good here, you're bad there. The mirror universe Jeffrey took over for a little while, but Jeffrey Prime is back now. He was starting to lose me. Well, whoever you are now, I'm glad you're back. Jeffrey smiled and saluted me with his fingers in a V shape. Live long and prosper, he told me. You too, I said. Instead of marching across to Trey, I went and stood in the cafeteria line, thinking about the mirror universe Amy Ann. Which one was the good one? And which one was the bad one? The Amy Ann who never spoke up and never got into trouble? Or the Amy Ann who refused to accept a bad decision by the school board and did something good about it? The biggest idea. The library was a very different place without Mrs. Jones in it. I stood at the entrance between the two pedestals with the book detectors in them, but even from there I could feel the difference. It was quieter in the library and sadder. It made my chest ache. Like when I'd fallen off my bike and gotten the wind knocked out of me. The library had been the only place in the world I loved, the only place that felt like it was all mine, even if other people were there at the same time as me. The school library had been my home, but this wasn't my home or my library anymore. I didn't want to go one step farther into that place, but I needed to return Indian captive. I crept up to the front desk. There was another lady sitting there, a substitute for Miss Jones. She was a big white woman, like Miss Jones, and had glasses on a chain, just like Miss Jones, only hers were square. She wore a colorful dress like Miss Jones too, only it was red and white stripes, not polka dots. She looked up from a copy of one of those celebrity gossip magazines and said, "Yes?" It was creepy. Mrs. Jones should be sitting there, not this person. Then I realized who she was. She was the mirror Mrs. Jones. "I'm returning a book," I said. I dropped it on the counter and ran right into Trey McBride. Neither of us fell down, but a stack of papers he'd been carrying went flying all over the floor. Sorry, I said. "Shh," mirror Mrs. Jones said. The real Mrs. Jones never shushed people in the library. I immediately bent down to help Trey pick up his papers until finally saw what it was that I was picking up. "Wait, what is this?" I asked him. "It's their request for reconsideration forms. The forms Mrs. Jones was always telling Trey's mom she had to fill out if she wanted to challenge a book." I flipped through them. Each and every one was a request for reconsideration form for a different book that hadn't been banned. Not yet. These forms were asking that they all be removed from the library. That wasn't the worst part. The worst part was that they hadn't been filled out by Miss Spencer. "These are all in your handwriting," I said. "No talking," mirror Mrs. Jones barked, making me jump. I pushed the papers back into Trey's hands and kept on pushing him back into the hall. "You're just as bad as your mom," I yelled at him when we were out of the library. He started to say. "It's bad enough that she already banned half the books in the library. Now you have to go and ban the other half," I said. I didn't know if this was the real Amy Ann or the mirror Amy Ann, but she was back and she wasn't going to be quiet anymore. Trey tried to say, but I cut him off. "At first I hated you," I told him. "You drew that awful picture of me as a mouse last year and hurt my feelings. Then we had to work on our Bill of Rights project and I thought you were different and I started to like you. Then I thought you ratted me out and got the locker library busted and I hated you all over again." Trey frowned. "But then I found out it wasn't you who turned me in and I started to like you again and now this." I snatched some of the papers back from him and read the titles he wanted to ban. "Sounder," "The Indian in the Cupboard," "The Chronicles of Prydian," "My Teacher is an Alien," "The Kid Who Only Hit Homers." Are you kidding me with this? "If you just let me, what's going to happen when you challenge every single book in the library?" I cut him off again. "What then, Trey? I'll tell you what will happen. You challenge every book in the library for every stupid little reason you can think of, and there won't be a single book left on the shelves for anyone to check out." "Exactly," Trey said. "What?" I said. I didn't understand. That was seriously what he was trying to do? "Are you finished?" Trey said. "Can I talk now?" I nodded, but I was still confused. "Okay, fine. First, you hated me because of the picture I drew of you last year. My face burned hot. I couldn't believe I'd actually told him that. But this was the new Amy Ann, the one who wasn't going to keep quiet anymore. I took a deep breath. Yes, I said. You drew me as a mouse. Reading a book, Trey said. But I'm a mouse. Everybody else was lions and eagles and cheetahs and things. Mice are quiet, Trey said. Timid. I huffed. Yes, so were you. I mean, you're not now, he said, straightening his shirt from where I pushed him, but you always had your nose in a book and never said anything. And whenever anybody did say something to you, it was like you were having this conversation with them in your head, but you never said anything out loud. That's crazy, I wanted to tell him. I don't have conversations with other people in my head, but then I blushed. He was right. I did it all the time. I was doing it right now. You're right, I said. I hated to admit it, but it was true. I'm really sorry if it hurt your feelings, Trey said. I didn't mean for it to. That's just how I saw you. I wouldn't draw you the same way now. Okay, so what's the deal with these requests for reconsideration forms? I asked him. Trey smiled. What better way to show everybody how stupid it is to ban books than to take it as far as it can go? Once you can ban one book, you can ban them all. He tried to straighten the mess of papers in his arms. This is just a start. When I finish, there won't be one book left on the Shelbourne Elementary Library shelves. Just wait till the TV cameras get a load of that. So, you don't really want any books banned? Trey said. No, that was all my mom's idea. I like Captain Underpants. I'm trying to draw a book just like it. Of course. Trey's mom hadn't known about the Captain Underpants until he'd checked it out from the library in the first place. And every time I saw him, Trey was drawing. That must have been why Mrs. Jones introduced him to Dav Pilkey. She knew he was trying to draw a book like Captain Underpants. She knew he was trying to draw a book like Captain Underpants. I'm sorry, I told him. I always thought you agreed with your mom. So did everybody else, Trey said. I nodded to the forms in his hands. If you do this, if you get all these books banned, everybody's going to think you really do agree with her. Trey shrugged. It doesn't matter now. Everybody already hates me because of her. I felt awful. I had done the same thing, blamed him for what his mom was doing. I'm the one to do it, Trey said. Maybe in the end, everybody will see why I did it. They don't kill me first. But there's thousands of books, I said. It'll take you all year. And they'll probably figure out what you're trying to do before you can finish. Trey shrugged. Well, I have to do something. I knew exactly what he meant. It was the same way I felt when I started the BBLL, and it was exactly the same way I felt now. Don't turn those in, I told him. Not yet. Turn them in all at once. What? He said. Like you said, that'll take forever. It needs to happen now while people still care. I know, I said, which is why we're going to need some help. We? Said Trey. We, I said. 24 farts. What a name. Mr. Vaughn's class was in the library. We were supposed to be looking for books to read, but the BBLL board had other plans. Rebecca, Danny, and I met back in the stacks as far away from the mirror Mrs. Jones as we could get. The first order of business was to add Trey McBride to our newest member. Trey? Danny asked. Trey was there and he looked embarrassed. He wasn't the one banning the books. It was his mom, I said. And you know how you were asking me what we do next? He's got a plan. I move that we add him to the BBLL board as our challenge response coordinator. That got Rebecca and Danny interested. He was voted in unanimously. So here's what we're going to do, I told them. We're going to ban every book in this library. Rebecca and Danny looked as stunned as I had been. Ban every book? Rebecca said. Shh, called Mira Mrs. Jones. No talking. I dragged the BBLL board into one of the library meeting rooms where we could talk, and I explained the plan. When Rebecca and Danny got it, they liked it. I knew they would. Danny flicked his hair out of his eyes. But how are we going to find something wrong with every book? Trust me, Trey said. Books have been challenged for all kinds of crazy reasons. I looked up some challenges on the internet. The easy ones are anything that's got witchcraft or supernatural stuff in it, anything with bad words, anything with gay characters, anything with violence, and anything that mentions boys and girls in it. He blushed when he said that last one, and we all found somewhere else to be looking. That's a lot of books, Rebecca said, but not nearly all of them. But look at this! Trey unfolded a piece of paper on the table. The stupids got challenged because it reinforces negative behavior and might encourage children to disobey their parents. Here's a riddle book that got banned because it made kids who couldn't figure out the riddles feel bad. My Teacher is an Alien got challenged because it portrays the main character as handling a problem on her own rather than relying on the help of others. Here's Destruction of Property, teaches kids to lie, a real downer, anti-family, lewd, twisted, too mature, too immature, bad grammar, promotes poor nutrition, includes the word fart 24 times. Danny snorted. What book is that? Walter the Farting Dog? Oh, sure, Danny said, and we all nodded. Look, the point is once you ban one book, somebody somewhere can find a reason to ban every book, I said. I looked to Trey, and he nodded. Even Where's Waldo has been banned because somebody found one little woman sunbathing face down, Trey said. We just have to start thinking like people who see this stuff everywhere that... We just have to start thinking like the people who see stuff everywhere that bothers them. So I just have to pretend to be my grandmother, Rebecca said. Or my mom, said Trey. A lawsuit waiting to happen. Once we got into looking for reasons to ban books, it was kind of fun. Anything with witches, wizards, jack-o'-lanterns, demons, or gods, gone. No Harry Potter, no Percy Jackson, no Artemis Fowl, no Chronicles of Narnia. Anything about the human body, gone. Anything with gay characters in it, gone. This one says, "Oh Lord," in it, Danny said. My mother won't let me say God's name unless I'm praying. Ban it, I told him. This book has a bad word on the first page, Trey said. I looked at the cover. It was a Newbery winner. Yeah, just about anything with one of these medals on it, you can find some reason to ban it. Fill out a form, I told him. Shh, no talking, Mayor Mrs. Jones yelled. We worked quietly and quickly all week long. That book about the Civil War, too violent. That book about the Holocaust, too depressing. That book about diseases, too scary. Book about lions, too gory. Every night I took home a stack of requests for reconsideration forms to add to the growing pile in my bedroom. We were going to bring them all to the next school board meeting. Really put on a show when all the TV cameras would be there. But we only had 4 school days left and lots more books to ban. Luckily, we had Rebecca. She was the only one who really shone when it came to challenging books. If ever there was a book we couldn't just imagine anybody banning, Rebecca could always come up with a reason. I think it was all that time she spent practice being a lawyer. The Lorax, that's libelous. The Lorax portrays lumberjacks in the timber industry in a negative light. Goodnight Moon, the mouse in the room is a health code violation. The red balloon is a choking hazard. And look at this picture of the illustrator on the back. He is holding a cigarette. That encourages kindergartners to think smoking is cool. Oh, and don't get me started about Amelia Bedelia. She clearly can't handle anything, yet the children are encouraged to laugh at her. What kind of message is that sending? This library is a lawsuit waiting to happen, Rebecca told me. There was a gleam in her eye as she said it. Rebecca, you do remember we're doing this as a prank to prove a point, right? Not actually doing it? Right, of course, Rebecca said. She looked a little sheepish, but went back to book challenging with gusto. Danny filled out a form for Frog and Toad, our friends. What's wrong with Frog and Toad? I asked him. They're a gay couple, he said. Oh, come on, they are not. They're just friends. That's what you say, Danny told me with an evil grin. To me, it's the subversive promotion of a gay lifestyle. And that was it, wasn't it? All the book challenges, the real ones, were because one person saw a book in a very different way than somebody else. Which was fine. Everybody has the right to interpret any book any way they want to. What they couldn't do was then tell everybody else their interpretation was the only interpretation. 3 days later, we had a request for reconsideration forms filled out for 500 books. There were lots more books than that in the library, of course, but it was the best we could do, even with Rebecca's lawyer superpowers. 500 books were challenged. 500 book challenges would still look great on TV, though, and make our point for us. We were ready. And then disaster struck. And by disaster, I mean my little sisters, which amounts to the same thing. Embracing the chaos. That afternoon, I embraced the chaos at home. I danced with my dad as he sang The Marriage of Figaro. I played chase with Flotsam and Jetsam. Not even Alexis is doing ballet in our room and Angelina running around on all fours like a horse bothered me. Before dinner, I sat down at the kitchen table and plowed through my homework without being told to. I didn't even mind doing fractions for math. Nothing could ruin my good mood. Tomorrow night, Rebecca, Danny, Trey, and I were going to show the school board how stupid they were for banning books. We were going to show everybody. When it was time for dinner, I cleared my books and took them back to my room. As I passed Angelina's room, I had to stop and shake my head in wonder. Angelina had turned her bedroom into another stable. But this one was crazy. There was shredded white recycled paper, pretend hay, everywhere. On her bookshelves, sticking out of her dresser drawers, in her bed, more than I'd ever seen before. She was going to howl when Mom and Dad made her clean it up, but the tantrum she was going to throw later didn't even make me want to run away. I didn't want to be anywhere else tomorrow night. But it did remind me there was one small detail in our big plan for the school board meeting I hadn't covered yet. I need a ride to the school board meeting tomorrow night, I said at dinner. My parents looked across the table at each other, talking to each other without talking again. Are you sure that's such a good idea, Amy Ann? Mom said. I slumped in my chair. That's what they always said when they disagreed with me, like I would change my mind if I just thought about it more. I thought about it plenty, and I said so. You said you wanted me to stand up for myself more, I told them, but that I had to do it the right way. Well, the right way is to go to the school board meeting and tell them that banning books is wrong. Mom and Dad looked at each other again. I could see them waffling. You said yourself if you didn't agree with the book banning, I said. If nobody else goes there and says anything about it, they'll just keep doing it. Dad sighed. Tomorrow night's awfully busy, he said. Alexis has ballet. Angelina has book club. Alexis always has ballet. And Angelina can't even read. They can miss one night. My sisters erupted. I can't miss a single practice, Alexis protested. Mrs. Dupont said missing just one class. I can too read. I can read Chicka Chicka Boom Boom, Angelina said, and she launched into reciting it to prove her point. Enough, enough, Dad told them. You're both excused. Alexis started to argue again, but Dad assured her he would figure everything out and send her away. She stomped off to her room and used my bedpost as a ballet bar, and Angelina wandered off singing the Chicka Chicka Boom Boom song. Mom leaned down and rubbed her forehead. I suppose we asked for this, she said. There are going to be television cameras there tomorrow night, Amy Ann, Dad said. Are you sure you want to do this? I knew what that meant. I hadn't gone up to the podium the last time he'd taken me, when there was almost nobody there. There were going to be lots more people there tomorrow night, and lots more watching at home on TV. A little monster started gnawing at the insides of my stomach, making me cringe. But I wasn't going to be a good girl and stay quiet. Not this time. I nodded. All right, Mom said. If we'll find a way to get you there. I breathed a big sigh of relief. Everything was set for our big night. I promised Trey I'd call him later, but first I wanted to add a few more requests for consideration forms to the big box of them I kept in my room. But when I got there, the box was gone. I panicked. looking under the bed, on my bookshelves, in my backpack, but the box wasn't in any of those places. I remembered very clearly leaving it on the floor beside my bed, and now it wasn't there. I marched up to Alexis, who was holding on to my bedpost and doing ballet exercises. "Where are my requests for reconsideration forms?" "Your what?" she asked, still mad about me suggesting she could miss a ballet class. "The big box of papers that was right here beside my bed before I went into the kitchen to do my homework," I told her. "Oh, that," she said. She swung her leg out in a wide circle. I moved it so I'd have room to practice my rond de jambe. "Where did you move it?" "Mom's office," she said, "with all the other boxes of paper." I tromped down the hall to the office/exercise room/guest bedroom/storage room, mad that Alexis had touched my stuff. The box was there just like she said it would be, but it was empty. "Alexis," I yelled. "Alexis, what'd you do with the request for reconsideration forms?" Alexis came out of our room. "I told you, I put them in Mom's office." "The box is here, but it's empty," I told her. "Well, it wasn't when I put it in there." That's when I realized where the empty box was sitting. Right beside the shredder. "No!" I said. No! Mom came out of the living room. "What's all this yelling?" she asked. I ran past Angelina into her room, where she was nestled down in the huge piles of shredded paper like a horse asleep in the hay. I snatched up a handful of the shredded paper and yanked it apart, trying to read what was written on the thin little strips. "Hey, that's my hay!" Angelina yelled. I grabbed another handful and another. They were full of chopped up black typewriting and handwriting scrawled in blue and black ink. At the top of one were the letters R-E-Q. At the bottom of another was the end of my signature, G-E-R. "No! That's mine!" Angelina screamed. "That's mine! You can't touch it! It's mine!" I threw the shredded paper on the floor and grabbed Angelina by the shirt. "This isn't recycled paper. You shredded up my request for reconsideration forms." Angelina wailed like I had hit her, which only made me want to more. But before I could do anything else to her, Mom and Dad and Alexis were in the doorway. "What's going on here?" Dad said. "Everything's ruined. Everything is ruined. She shredded up all our requests for reconsideration forms. That was the whole point of going to the school board meeting tomorrow. Our whole plan. It took us a week to fill all those out, and now they're ruined." I kicked at the piles of shredded paper, sending them flying in the air like snow. Angelina dropped to the floor and sobbed. "I hate you," I screamed at her. "I hate you all. I hate this stupid house and everybody in it." "Amy Ann," Mom said. Alexis and the dogs shrank back from me as I ran past my parents and down the hall to my room. That was it. I was done. I was leaving. I pulled the little suitcase out that I used when we went to Granny's house and threw it on the bed. I tossed in shirts and skirts and underwear and socks, my favorite stuffed animal, and the little statue of Belle I'd bought at Disney World last year, and the reading medal I'd won in 2nd grade, what little money I had left over from the BBLL book buying account, and a few of my favorite books, including from the mixed up files of Mrs. Basil E. Frankweiler. I didn't know where I was going, but I didn't care, so long as it was nowhere near my awful house. "Amy Ann is packing her suitcase," Alexis yelled from our doorway. She looked frightened. Behind her, the dogs paced nervously with their tails down. Good, I thought. I hope they all miss me when I was gone. I zipped up my suitcase and dragged it down the hall. "I'm running away," I announced. Alexis started sobbing behind me, but Mom and Dad didn't cry or try to stop me. That just made me madder. I stomped down the hall toward the front door, but Angelina came flying out of her room and wrapped herself around my legs. No, Amy Ann, don't go. I'm sorry I used your papers. I'm sorry. Don't go," she cried. I tried to kick Angelina off, but she was too big, so I dragged her along like I was wearing a ball and chain. Angelina wailed and clung to me tighter. Dad crossed his arms and leaned against Angelina's doorframe. "Don't you think you're overreacting just a little bit, Amy Ann?" I stopped. I had so much I wanted to say to all of them. The good girl Amy Ann would have said it in her head, but I was done being the good girl, so I said it out loud. No, I said. No, I am not overreacting. I'm the one who always has to do things I don't want to do so everybody else will be happy. It's Amy Ann set the table. Amy Ann let your sister use your books as fences. Amy Ann let your sister use your bed. But when I want something, it's Amy Ann, just be a good girl and let it go. I'm tired of sitting on the sunny side of the car because Alexis is too hot. I'm tired of eating pudding for dessert because Angelina wanted to have the last cookie. I'm tired of always watching My Little Pony instead of Little House on the Prairie. I'm tired of doing my homework in the bathroom because Alexis has turned my room into a ballet studio and you're watching TV in the living room and Angelina is using the kitchen table as a pony stable. And I'm tired of people moving my stuff and shredding my papers to make fake hay and ruining everything. I peeled the crying Angelina off my leg and pushed her to the wall. Why do you think I pretended to be in clubs and stayed late after school every day? I threw at my parents. Because I hate this house and everybody in it. I marched down the hall before Angelina could latch onto me again and the dogs slinked out of my way. No one said a word as I slammed the door closed behind me. All right, I'm gonna make a second video for the rest of the book.